please type in where you're from. Why did you choose this one? Why are you interested in this particular topic? So please go into chat and just type in where you are right now, where you're from. That can be location or organization, whatever you choose. But I would love to just get a sense for why people chose this. You could have chose 6 others. All right. From Los Angeles. Questions, model-based systems engineering. Okay, San Diego in the house. Lake Tahoe, beautiful place. Yeah, digital engineering is groundbreaking. Right on, Glenn. Is that you? Yeah, okay. Austin. Yeah, being stuck in I'm in Santa Cruz, so it could be worse. You got to be stuck somewhere. Tahoe's not bad. To learn, Gary. I love it. All right, Turbine Engine Division, Georgia. We've got Riverside, California. Okay, again, I asked folks to type in just where they are. And then if there's anything that they're interested in knowing, why did they come here? Why are they in this particular place? That always helps our presenters get a sense from it. Streamline airworthiness. Yeah, thinking about airworthiness, thinking about safety, thinking about how to make things work. Folks are here to learn. We've got a lot of Florida. We've got Singapore, Melbourne, Florida. All right, so it's a good group. Good stuff here. And by the way, if you're interested, you can always scroll up to see details on what other people have put here. Evelyn, are we good? Not yet?
Sorry, one sec.
Okay. DC Pentagon, I want to see how we can leverage digital engineering to make it easier to test and update for sustainment. I love it. I mean, one of the things you'll realize about the session, and again, as we're kind of waiting to get started here, scroll up, please. Everybody's here for a different reason. They're related, and part of the networking and part of the whole week is to try to get you folks connected. To learn. Joshua, I like it. You kept it simple, buddy. All right. Someone would like to enlist in the Air Force. If you think you might be the youngest, I don't know if I can trust you guys, but if you think you might be the youngest person on this call, please type your age in to the chat. Type your real age. No 14-year-old. All right, Carter. Love it, man. 19. Got Joshua. This is a future right here, guys. I really love this conference for the diversity of ages that we got. I would do the other one, the most mature, but I don't know. I'm about 50. I don't really like typing in my age. All right. So full transparency. Oh, 68. All right. Well, welcome. That's great. Age is a state of mind. I like it. Fail fast. Design it today. 3D print and fly it tomorrow. 18. 77. I want to see history in the making. All right. Love it.
David, I see Brandon on here, and I just unmuted you, Brandon.
Oh, hey, Brandon.
Hey, David. And hello, thank you for the 50 or so of you that have joined this group. We just got word that the secretary has called in Colonel Bartholomew. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly, and he will not be able to join this breakout. I do not know what happened except for that he was called in. Chris Benson is going to be in this room in round 2, and perhaps the Colonel will be back. But in light of 15 minutes left in this round, I think unless the chat is going amazing, David, we can let people go and see their second and third choice instead of their first choice here, and our sincere apologies about that.
Yeah, sorry, folks, but yeah, let's get him out to other rooms ASAP. Good call.
Yep, Chris Benson will be here for round 2, and I'll make that announcement live on the big screen too. But yes, make your way to your second choice, and then Chris Benson will be here for the next round. Sorry, once again, very sorry, everyone.
So the best way is to go to Agility Prime, is that right?
Yep, go to backtoagilityprime.com and look for any groups 2 through 7, and you choose your second best choice. Sorry, guys.
Evelyn, you look in chat.
Which chat? This chat.
Chris Benson, are you on the line? And would you like to just have a dialogue with anybody who wants around?
Okay, yeah. So I guess there's 27 folks still here, and I unmuted you, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Sorry.
All right, sweet.
Your last name, I thought it was you.
All right,
Dude,
yeah.
you are
So this
stepping
is,
up, Chris. I love
yeah,
it.
that's Major Chris Benson. Well, so it's funny because so I worked under Colonel Bartolome for a few years, developing at the tactical level his kind of strategic vision for digital engineering. So I don't have slides necessarily. Well, I don't have slides for either portion of this talk because I
Hey,
think
Chris.
the Q&A is better to deal with these. Yep.
Hey, Chris, would it be all right then, since we have a smaller group, we only got like 23 folks, would it be all right if they type in a few questions and then you and I just kind of riff back and forth on some questions?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can start off with a quick overview of at least my understanding of where we're going with digital engineering, and a little bit of the background that I have there, and then I can open it up so that we can get a little bit more targeted questions, if that makes sense.
Great. Do it.
Does that work? Okay, cool.
That's
So
great.
good afternoon, everybody. I think we're afternoon across the entire country. Yeah, we are. Okay. My name is Major Chris Benson. My background in digital engineering in the Air Force is I worked for the GBSD program, starting at the very beginning through the Milestone A process, where we did kind of the first full digital engineering or model-based system engineering acquisition, where we were actually getting digital products in and going through the entire acquisition products, where we weren't relying on PDFs or paper products. Requires a lot of very interesting challenges, both on the technical side, but also on the contracting, legal, and finance side. And so I know that it sounds like there's a lot of engineers out there. One of the big differences, I come from an engineering background, one of the big differences that we noted there is that when you're working with the government, working beyond just the technical side, but also realizing there's a whole bunch of other stakeholders there, and tons of lawyers and tons of finance and contracting folks, is a really, really important thing to think about as you go forward. After that, I spent some time working with implementing digital engineering at a MAGCOM level with the Air Force Global Strike Command. And at the 4-star level over there. And one of the big challenges they were having is trying to figure out if they could digitally model their entire force structure. And so we've been working on that and pulling in data from the different wings and the squadrons and the program offices, right? So another point to note there is that when we think about digital engineering, it's not necessarily just what you would maybe traditionally think of as engineering, right? So yes, there's a big component to CAD models and model-based architectures for a weapon system and doing traditional system engineering and things like that. But then you can also think about engineering your defense force, right, across an entire system, right? And digital engineering is particularly useful for this because it can tie the technical aspects to the functional aspects and the operational aspects, and then back into the requirements where you're working from. So for all the companies working out there, when you start working on some of these digital engineering constructs, it's really, really important to think not only about technically about how it will work, but also how it will interface with the existing systems, be that technical systems or just operational procedures and processes and things that exist within the current force structure within the Air Force or whatever service you're working with.
Yeah, Chris, one of the things that came through in an early chat when I said, why do you want to join, which you kind of touched on, is how is it going to change how we manage programs and how we design systems? Like, how do you see it interfacing with those?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I honestly think that one of the things that you're going to start seeing is this idea of these modular open system architecture type capabilities, right? Where you need, instead of just buying one system that they kind of sits static for a while and doing periodic upgrades every 5 years, we're going to be looking to put out a system and then be continually upgrading it, potentially every flight, right? And you're seeing that with some of the stuff that we've been doing with the software factories and F-16s. I know that they are now able to push code mid-flight, new code mid-flight, the F-16 while they're running through different missions. And so what you're seeing is pilots taking off with one set of capabilities for their aircraft and landing with additional capabilities. And so what digital engineering should allow you to do is not just think about how it is designed today, but also think about how it could be upgraded in the future. And this will be particularly important to a lot of, I'm assuming a lot of the organizations on this call are likely going to be smaller organizations. I mean, I'm sure there's a few primes here as well. But if you are one component or one piece of a larger system, it's going to be very, very important for you to understand how all these things tie in together, right? And digital engineering allows us to manage that higher level of complexity between a number of different interrelated parts, right? So really having a good understanding of how your system works and can tie in with a bigger architecture will allow for more opportunities for upgrades and more acquisition opportunities as you move forward.
So one of the questions was just around impact. Like, it seems like digital engineering is having a huge impact and will have a huge impact. Is that how you're viewing it right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, that I really do think, and I'm biased, obviously, we spent a lot of time, but we found so many more benefits to moving towards the digital engineering capabilities when we started running a large program with it. Once again, Colonel Bartolome, I wish he was here. He could give you a lot more background on that. But what I've seen, the benefits we've seen have far outweighed kind of what we expected, right? And a lot of the benefits have been in different ways than we originally expected, you know, in terms of really, really increasing the iteration speed, increasing the fidelity at which you can understand interdependencies, and really enabling us on the government side to do our job and our reporting back up to the Pentagon, and then over to the Hill. And so I think as we move forward, I can't see us not leveraging digital engineering more and more as we go into the future. That's just on the programmatic side. And then, and I'm sure if y'all are here and care about digital engineering, you've probably heard of what Dr. Roper's been talking about with Digital Century series and things like that, about the idea that you don't need to build and fly everything in the real world before you try it out. You can actually do virtual fly-offs and things like that with very high fidelity digital twins. And that is certainly an area that we're continuing to push as you know, as hard as we can. Because there becomes a day when you start to build it, what you're doing is you're validating your digital twin, and then you're using your tests to continue to paint the corners of your digital twin to make sure that it's a better representation of reality.
Cool. So Chris, we have a couple 14-year-olds, we have 19-year-olds, we have some young folks who are probably just like the future of where we'll take all this stuff. What would you say to them in terms of what they can focus on? Where should they how should they continue their learnings? Obviously they're interested enough to join this call.
Yeah, well, it's well, I guess I hope you're not doubling up on your call when you're supposed to be on whatever sort of classroom Zoom call you're on. I don't have school age kids that are going to Zoom classes, but my neighbors do. So first off, make sure you're doing that actual work with your schoolwork. Second off, one of the things that we found is that digital engineering, what it does is it really has required people to learn a lot more about a much wider variety of things, because as soon as you lay out all of the different aspects and see how they interconnect, you immediately can see how what I'm doing in you know, say for example, what I'm doing in the fuselage design, or in my fuel management system, or in my you know, other aspects, or in the software and different components there, is impacting everything else, right? It's impacting the you know, the contracting strategy to finance. It's impacting you know, how many people we train. It's impacting how big the roads are that we need to drive the replacement parts on. It's impacting how often we repair these things. And so one thing I would say is learn how to learn, and be able to find information really, really quickly and understand how it relates back to what you already know. I think that maybe that sounds kind of abstract, but what it has done, when we've seen the people who are best able to leverage this digital engineering really have that kind of curiosity to go out and find the other aspects that they didn't know about beforehand.
That's great. Really helpful. So we got about 4 minutes left. Since we're such a small group, It shouldn't just be us. Oh, actually, Evelyn, are you still with us to unmute people?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, I can unmute people. If you'd like to ask a question, just raise your hand. I believe there's a way to do that. Would anybody have a question for Chris?
Yeah, I got a question,
right.
Dave,
David.
with Amphenol. So as far as rapid prototyping, we were talking about MOSA and the modular open systems architecture. Now, with the digital engineering side, do you see the digital engineering, let's say with the cooperation between military and large industry, as we digitally engineer a product and then rapid prototype it as a kind of a throwaway item, and then before we do large scale production, do you see that as a benefit to the future with the way aircraft will be changing over the next decade and 20 years? Over.
Yeah, so when you say develop a throwaway model, I'm assuming you're okay, we're gonna make a one-off prototype of something, like a physical prototype. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay, yeah. So actually, one of the things I think, at least that we're starting to see, is we're going to do a lot more testing before you get to that point, right? In this kind of virtual world, one way or the other, and then and then you'll move maybe more. You can do smaller scale, actual physical prototypes to help understand how accurate your digital twin is, within the real world. And so I think that I would expect, especially as smaller component suppliers, things like that, to be able to integrate, to be able to present your capability. Then take your component, plug it into our digital twin of our overall model, run some tests on it, see how it works, and then that allows us to try many more things at a common pace. And that's something that I think we'll start paying people for, is actually developing those digital twins of whatever their physical capability is. And then we can run those virtual fly-offs and other things that actually show that they're the best. Then you can start developing those into actual prototypes. But in terms of building the full-scale physical prototypes, that's still pretty expensive. And so I think you're going to try to reduce a lot more risk before you get to that point.
I was muted. Evelyn, we need to move on to the next chat room. Is that correct? You're probably muted too.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, David, that's correct. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, right about now. So yeah, this was short. So if you're still interested, you can stay here with Chris Benson, or you can go back to agilityprime.com and select a different chat room. But
Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks, Chris. Good stepping up, buddy.
Oh.
Hey, sorry about that. I realized that I can't unmute myself after I mute myself.
Nice work, dude. That was great.
Yeah, no, I think it's an important topic. And
Chris, you don't have any slides for this next one, do you?
I don't.
I'm gonna try to scribe it, David.
All right.
That might be a little ambitious, but we're gonna try.
What's the next one starting right at 4 or right now?
We'll wait a minute.
Okay.
But yeah, you don't really have a lot of time to take a break, I don't think. All right, everybody, welcome. We got get started in just a moment. Got 19 folks here.
If this looks terrible, I'm gonna stop.
All right, we're going to give a little bit more time for other people to join. This is the second chat room with Major Chris Benson. U.S. Air Force. All right, we got 34 participants. So I'm just going to check my channel, see when we start. All right, 57 participants now. Okay, we're pumped. We're bringing it up a little bit. All right, so I wanted to welcome you to the second round of chat rooms. We're really excited to have Chris Benson from the Air Force, who's gonna lead this one for us. All of you chose this for a reason. So, and by the way, I mentioned this last round. So my name's David Roberts. I'm part of Brandon's team, co-founder at The Difference. And we're using a bunch of different technologies. This is just Zoom. It's not a webinar where you can do Q&A. It's a Zoom call where you can just type into chat. So the only engagement technique we have is chat. So if you would please go to chat, which is located at the bottom of your screen, and just chat in anything, say where you are right now, like maybe either like where you work or where you're sitting. I'm in Santa Cruz, California. I work at The Difference. Boston, welcome. Welcome, Helen. And then why did you choose this one? Why are you here? What, like something drew, you had a lot of choices. So Waco, Texas, Virginia, I love it. We had Singapore last time, Maryland, but why did you choose this? Why are you interested in hearing from Chris around this subject? Would love to hear a couple thoughts on that. Chris doesn't have slides. He just really wants to go off the cuff. I'm gonna, as a facilitator, I'm gonna watch the chat. And if you can type in, you know, what are you curious about? Why did you join this call? That's just going to help us make this all the more useful to you. Last session we had ranging in ages from 14 years old. We had several 14-year-olds all the way up to 77 plus, maybe. I don't know. 77 typed it in. Maybe there was somebody older. I don't know. But one of the really cool things about this program is the diversity. As you look at this chat, there are people from all over the country, all over the world, and lots of different entry points. These 14-year-old dudes, I think they were dudes, both of them. You know, we're excited about learning and just being a part of this conversation. So the future is bright. All right, we got 19, we got 16, we got 14. What's up, Joshua? Good to have you, buddy. Luke, 16-year-old, Carter. Yeah, you're here to learn. I love it. Doing this as online PDT for GMC years. Good. I'm an old man, over 55. Yeah, you just, at a certain age, you just like, I'm greater than or equal to 48. That's me. I don't want to be the oldest. Helen, I hear you. 73 here and still learning. The growth mindset, not fixed mindset. I love it. Sorry to call you out. All right. So we want to make sure we get moving. I am doing way too much talking. Evelyn's going to be capturing stuff on the screen here. Hopefully that's useful. But Chris, I'm going to pass it to you to just give any kind of intro comments you want to give. After 3 or 4 minutes, I'll chime in. I'll look through the chat and have a couple questions I can ask you to keep you moving. But why don't you kick us off, Chris?
You have to unmute Chris. Oh, where did
you should be good now.
No, he's still muted.
I'm going to unmute you, buddy.
All right. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
You're on.
Okay. Sorry.
Live.
I cannot unmute myself. It tells me I can't.
Okay.
Anyway, so first off, thank you very much for the introduction here. Thank you very much for setting up this whole event. I think the Agility Prime kickoff week, I've seen some of the things through here and they've been very, very impressive. And I'm really excited to take my my flying trip to the Pentagon so I can skip all the traffic here in the DC area. So let's get this out as soon as possible. Quick background on where I come from, just so all the participants can know where I'm coming from. My name is I'm Major Chris Benson. Used to be Captain Chris Benson. Recently got promoted, and I am an acquisition officer in the Air Force. I worked on everything from nearly $100 billion programs down to many, many small $50,000 small business awards. And what I've been working on most recently with AFWERX and the Air Force Research Labs and Dr. Roper, who's the Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisition Technology and Logistics, is focusing on what we're calling Air Force Ventures. The idea behind this is really trying to find ways to bring in the best capabilities and the best technologies, and then bring them to the warfighter and the national defense as soon as possible, while at the same time trying to create and grow companies in the United States to grow the economy. So it's the idea of security and prosperity being inextricably linked. So in general, the construct behind ventures, or Air Force Ventures, is really leveraging a few different societal trends that are kind of outside of our control. And so this wasn't an idea where we sat around and whiteboarded and said, let's go ahead and try something new. This really was, okay, the world is changing, so how can we make sure to ride the wave of the changes in the world rather than trying to fight back what's going on. So the three major changes, the first one is the change in R&D funding between the defense industry and the commercial world. And so many of you may not know this, but back in the post-World War II days, there was a time when a majority of all R&D spending in the United States came from the Department of Defense, right? And so we're spending just incredible amounts of money to develop new technologies. More than $1 out of every $2 of all R&D within the nation was coming from the DoD. And now we fast forward to 2020, and that number is well below 20%, and much smaller in some areas when you're looking at that. So we're only representing say a fifth of all of the R&D funds in the country. Then that means that we need to find a way to leverage that other 80% of funds that are being spent on other things that are kind of outside of our immediate control. And so the question is how can we use our funds to leverage and incentivize and motivate those 80% of funds outside of the DoD to once again achieve that security and prosperity goal that we were talking about earlier. The second trend we're seeing is we're really seeing a consolidation in the defense industrial base of the number of large players, and even in some cases the number of small players who are starting to work with the DoD. Right. So we think we have some of the most interesting problems in the entire world. And we know that they're incredibly important to a lot of folks, and even some of the roles that are some of the missions that people don't know about, but allow people across the country to sleep safely at night. We think that they're some of the most important problems there are. And one of our goals is to counteract this contraction of the defense industrial base. So we want to expand this so we have more and more variety and more number of companies that are looking to work with us at all levels, right? So both in terms of new small entrants coming in and hopefully seeing more competition as you go up the scale into larger and larger programs. Now, the last societal trend that we're seeing is definitely the emergence of China and other sort of near-peer superpowers, and looking and seeing how seeing how their some of their strategies are in terms of leveraging the commercial world and some of those civilian type technologies and moving forward with that. We do not want to be in the case where the leading technologies for the world are all run out of places that don't necessarily share all the same values as where we're at. So we're looking to try to find ways where the best and most cutting edge technologies and the industry leaders can come from the United States and our partners and allies in terms of moving forward. So those kind of three societal trends are what we're trying to do with ventures. And what you've seen over the last few years is kind of our approach at actually seeing that through. So that's why. So how do we do this? Well, it really comes down to an approach of many small bets scale the winners, right? So if any of y'all have seen what we've been doing with pitch days, or what we've been doing with the open topics, or we've been doing with, we recently had our pitch bowl, what you've noticed is that we want to try to get as many companies and as many small experiments as we can. So every year, and Dr. Roper just said this on a call recently, looking to do roughly 1,000 small bets per year, a few hundred medium-sized bets, and then a few dozen of these kind of larger bets. The small bets being, say, $50,000 to $100,000, the medium bets being in the $1 million range, and the larger bets being upwards of $10 million. And so the way we structure this is the way I kind of think about this, and I think Captain Lawver used this analogy at our pitch bowl recently, is I kind of think about it as kind of like a dating analogy, right? So we try to create a very, very simple application, 15 slides and 5 pages to come in to work on our process. And that's kind of like dating profile online. It's been a while since I had a dating pool, but they tell me they've got an even simpler apps now for creating your dating profile. So try to reduce that. So the second step there is like, okay, well now this makes some sense. So let's go have a cup of coffee. And that cup of coffee is that small bet. And what it comes out to is saying, all right, well, let's figure out if it's feasible for your proposed research and your proposed solution to actually solve a specific need within the Air Force. And from there, we really we want to make sure that you're not only just looking at the initial problem that you think you can solve, but also exploring solving other types of problems or just making sure that what you can do that. And so we allow for a lot of that exploration and really trying to push the boundaries in that first kind of cup of coffee stage. Now, after that, if that cup of coffee goes well, then we go on to those medium bets, which is more like having dinner, right? So let's go out for dinner. Let's start seeing if this is really going to work, and that's our medium bets. Those are in the $1 million range. And that's really saying, okay, can this solution run the experiments, see if this type of solution or this type of technology actually solve this specific need that we have in the Air Force? And sometimes it takes a little longer than that. And so we do have ways to have more than one dinner, more than one sense of dinner, if you will, as you go along. But really, once you kind of prove that works, we then want to make sure that, hey, this actually really does work and it works really well for this particular user. And in some cases, you're going to have a capability where you're going to say, hey, actually, this could work for a lot of different folks. And that's where we really say, go up to those large bets. And so just like in the real world, if you start having dinner with somebody and you really kind of figure out that, hey, this might work, you actually, even if you really want to get married, as soon as you get that idea, you usually don't get married right away, unless maybe if you're in Vegas, which I know the AFWERX Vegas folks are there. Really, there are some logistical hurdles to doing that. So the way we view our large bets is a little bit kind of like it's a little bit kind of like an engagement, right? So just because something works well and you're trying to expand it across the entire Air Force, we have some logistical constraints, most notably the budgeting and the budgeting and programming process we call the POM process, just to make sure there's funds lined up. And so we try to use our large bets to help cross that valley of death, that acquisition valley of death. And the whole goal there being at the end of it is now you're going into a large program of record and you end up, and that's kind of the equivalent of marriage. So we go from your online dating profile, which is 15 slides at 5 pages, all the way up to program of record and getting married. And the time frames that we try to see for that are really, say, between 15 months and 36 months as you go through this. So with that, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. Seen some very, very big successes. Really, really happy about this whole process. Our first round of large bets was just announced back in March at the Air Force Pitch Bowl, which had Secretary Barrett and Dr. Roper there. And so we're really excited about this and expect to see more of the same thing as we grow to scale with this.
Great.
So with that, I think time to open up for any questions.
Yeah, let me just interject with one that came through that is really appropriate, is around COVID.
Yep.
Does COVID impact the timeline?
Yeah, so just like with everything else, we're trying to pivot and to work in kind of a virtual world, and some of our processes were not set up to do that. We are prioritizing those things, those timelines. We don't think will slip very much, but we're working our best to do that as quickly as possible. On the COVID front, it's not necessarily relevant anymore, but today at noon we had a special direct to phase 2 topics. That's kind of directly to that medium-sized bet or that kind of having dinner stage, with a special set of focus areas focused on COVID response. And so those were due back at noon today. And so we're going to try to move some of those things to the front of the line so we can use this venture process to get after the COVID response.
That's great. Outstanding. So other folks were interested in understanding how this connects with other funding programs or related programs. Is there anything else that folks on the line, there's 97 people, 96, might know about and be confused with, or there's some interplay between any other program that's similar or related?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So first off, we've developed a process, right, or a process for moving basically from that first contact with the Air Force all the way up to program of record. Along the way, one of the big factors of likelihood of success is making sure that you're finding other people within the government and outside the government who want to put skin in the game as well, right? And so one of the requirements for some of those large bets is to actually bring in matching funds from other organizations, so other government customers. And so we want to help you go through that process, but what we don't want to do is fund things that don't have a chance to move into that program of record. So always be looking for those other sources of funds outside of the ventures process, both internal and external to the government. Tying into other sorts of opportunities. I mean, there's far too many for you to go off on. I know that at AFWERX we do a bunch of challenges, and a lot of the companies that come out of the challenges end up going in through the ventures process as well. And same thing, we would do a lot of work very, very closely with the other services organizations, right? So in fact, in the last round in February, our first round ever was a fully joint topic between AFWERX and Army Futures Command and AFWERX and DIU/Ensign, Defense Innovation Unit, National Security Innovation Network. And so each one of those organizations has their own really, really great funding opportunities and ways to go through there. I highly recommend checking out those types of organizations as well.
Great, thank you. Another question from this one from Martin Holland. He said a common question regarding the ICO and areas of interest is whether funding will be available for those who perhaps cannot fly a prototype by December 2020.
Yeah, so it depends. So I don't know behind the scenes exactly what they're working on for the Agility Prime contracting strategy. So I will tell you that from what I've seen, this actually related a little bit to the last conversation, the last group that was in this talk. And I will tell you that flying in some sense, or in some cases, may mean a virtual fly off, right? So we have done certain things where we build, fully kitted out digital twins of certain capabilities, and then we run a virtual fly off to see how well they test. And then what you can do is you can pick certain components of it and build them out in the real world to validate that your model is actually reflecting what's going on in the real world. Now that being said, I'm not exactly sure. I apologize for not having that answer, but I'm sure if you reach out to the Agility Prime folks, they'll tell you exactly what they mean by flying by December 2020.
Yeah, right on, Chris. Another question. This is kind of an ask or a wish list thing, but maybe it's possible. What's the chance of a more robust cyber dating app, quote unquote, for small business connections with USAF prospects?
Yes, that's a really good question, and we actually have a beta out for that, which I'm sure that they will. What I'll do is I'll share the actual link for that. Let's see if I can find it really quick. I'll either try to find this really quickly. Let's see, Air Force. Yeah, if you go to airforcetechconnect.org, that is in beta right now. And here I can copy it and put it into the chat.
Cool.
They're probably going to be very upset with me that I'm releasing this out because they're trying to beta it with a very small number of folks. So as long as you're okay with kind of working in the wild, wild west and realize that we're still developing this capability, I just put the link in there.
All right. So maybe everybody don't share this with a bunch of people. Maybe we just kind of keep it to our little, our humble little group right here. Another question: can companies from Europe apply?
So right now we don't have ways for non-U.S. companies to go through the ventures process. We're working on ways that try to work more closely with our partners and allies. We had some big news that we were going to be pushing forward this summer at Farnborough in the UK. COVID has caused some of that to come through, but I will tell you there are deep conversations about trying to apply the same principles that I just mentioned with ventures to working more closely with our partners and allies.
That's great, Chris. Hey, you typed it into chat, but you may have sent it to one person. That's a trick with chat sometimes. Can you retype that link
Oh,
in?
you're right. I did just do that to one person. You're right. Okay, hold on. There you go. There you go.
There
Did
you
that
go.
work? Did I do it right?
AFWERXTechConnect.org. It's in beta.
Yeah.
Be forgiving. Don't forward this around a
Yeah.
bunch because it's just getting started.
Well, I mean, if it works, that's good. But they're if you overwhelm them, then it's not going to work.
So this is kind of a more general question. So one person just said their experience was just check the chat. Somebody had an experience where it wasn't real clear, or they submitted and then it wasn't real clear. They didn't get clear feedback back from the team. I'm sure there's examples where things slip a little bit. So just check in on that. It's kind of a one-off. But another question was on how do we move the needle and make flying cars a reality and empower veteran founders?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, one of the things, actually, the last question asking about how you do better at connecting with folks in the military to find those Air Force customers. One of the things that we have seen, which has been really, really encouraging for us, is the fact that a lot of these companies that are going to be more traditionally just commercial focused tech companies, one of the ways that we've seen very, very, very successful for them is by hiring veterans who know how to speak military and know the culture there, and can find ways to do that. And so we've seen good partnerships between traditional tech companies and veterans of all types, right? Not just the general officers going out there, to really make it so that you can leverage the learning and the experience from your service. But then also being able to now also grow into that technology landscape for your post-service career.
Great. All right. And we have 2 more minutes, so probably 2 more questions. One of them that just came in, I thought was a good one. They're all good, of course. Will AFWERX Ventures support development with funding of vehicles, or are they restricted, like many VCs, to only invest in technologies which scale easily? In other words, do you have certain areas of focus for investment, Chris?
Yeah, so every round we have a different set of focus areas, and they change. We do calls for the small and medium bets 3 times a year, so February, June, and October. Last month we had an out of cycle call for the COVID response for obvious reasons. But in general, when they come out, you will see a list of focus areas to go see. And you can find out what's coming there. And I know we've been working closely with Colonel Diller and the Agility Prime folks to make sure that their needs are captured there.
That's great. And so for folks who just want more connection with you, more information, more connection, how does that happen? What's the best way for them to engage with you?
Yeah, so I wish I could say email me directly, but it's not a very, we work with multiple thousands of companies every year, and I try my best to go through my inbox, but it's not a very great way to reach out to me. We do have if you just go to afwerx.af.mil, there's a whole bunch of different opportunities there, and we're posting more of those there, and we have calls every Friday, and the exact information is on the website, and I believe they're every Friday at 1, where we have folks, including myself, will join those calls and answer questions very similar to this, and we found that's a much better way, because a much better way to get out to everybody, because you keep a consistent message, and it allows us to really make connections between the companies that are looking to work with us.
It's great. All right, everybody. Thank you, Chris, so much. This could have gone on quite a bit longer, I'm sure. But let's go to agilityprime.com. We're going to kind of regroup with the team. So head on back to the main area. If you want to type in a little thank you to Chris, please do. but he actually did a chat room and a half because the first chat room somebody got called away, so he's a champ. So Chris, nice to meet you, and we'll see you back at agilityprime.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Take care, y'all.
Bye, everybody.